Welcome back to Face the State on this Sunday morning. Here to discuss tolls and other issues facing our state on this Sunday are two state senators, Christine Cohen, a Democrat, and George Logan, a Republican. And senators, we thank you so much for being with us here in the program.
Thank you.
First of all, I'll begin with you, Senator Cohen. What did you think of what the commissioner had to say about the potential of all these gantries? What are your voters saying about it?
Well, my voters, I campaigned about tolls. It's been a hot topic in the state for a long time. And, quite frankly, we haven't seen other options that can get us to where we need to be, a spot where we can fix our deteriorating bridges and roadways the way that tolls can. If a new option, a better option came to the table, I'm sure everybody would be willing to take a look at it, but we're not there at this point. Toll seems to be the best option to get us there. I'll trust the experts on the number of gantries that we need. We need to trust reports that are coming out of DOT and from the commissioner's office on where we need to place gantries, what roadways they should be on, and the number of gantries that we should in fact have. But it's certainly something that we need in order to get us to a spot where we can be fixing our transportation infrastructure within the state.
Senator Logan, I know many Republicans are against tolls altogether. Is that your stance as well?
Yes, my stance, absolutely. I mean, transportation certainly is a priority for here in Connecticut. And we need to prioritize how we spend our money. You look over the last several years, we raided the special transportation fund of monies that were dedicated for repairing our roads and bridges. And even in the current Governor Lawan's budget is looking at taking the money out of the special transportation fund and adding tolls. There are other ways that we can come up with the funding that we need. And take a look at tolls. Tolls, a lot of folks are looking at it to fix our roads and bridges, right? But if you take, even our commissioner just recently said he's looking at building a tunnel underneath Hartford, which is going to cost billions of dollars. It goes back to controlling how we spend our money and not spending our money on things that are, in my estimation, are somewhat frivolous in terms of when you look at the priorities that we have here in the state of Connecticut.
What are some of the other ways to get money?
Well, for one thing, stop raiding the special transportation fund. For another thing, or for example, the 2019 budget has a surplus in the Special Transportation Fund. There are monies available for doing that. The Republicans have what we call prioritize progress. And there is a way where over the next 30 years, we're looking at $30 to $75 billion in terms of funding that could be used. For example, with bonding that we have here in the state of Connecticut, we're utilizing bonding money for all kinds of silly things. Again, prioritizing how we spend our money.
Judging by what the commissioner said, it looks as if your constituents could be hit particularly hard by tolls because you represent an area that is cut in half by I-95. So let's presume a lot of people who live in your district get on that highway to perhaps commute to work. Do you think they'll support that?
Well, there would certainly be tolls in the area. There'll be tolls, on 84 and 95, as the commissioner said. I want to touch on the bonding piece a little bit. When we talk about how we're going to pay for transportation infrastructure, when we use bonding, who pays for 100% of that bonding? Well, the taxpayers do. In the case of tolls, who pays for that? The fix of our bridges and our roadways. Well, 40% of that we know would be on out-of-state drivers. And that's fair because we're talking about a user tax here. We're talking about everybody's using our bridges and roadways which are deteriorating, and let's make sure that we're implementing a user fee. We're the only state on the eastern seaboard that does not have tolls currently.
Senator, are you concerned about the condition of the bridges, that kind of a dire situation that the commissioner painted?
Certainly, and as we all should be. But when we take a look at bonding, we already have a bonding cap, so we're not talking about additional bonding. It's utilizing the current existing bonding mechanism that we have to help fix our roads and our bridges. And when you take a look at who will be paying for those tolls, I found that most folks are in favor of paying tolls and they think that someone else is paying those tolls. But in fact, it'll be Connecticut residents who will be paying the majority of those tolls. You even take a look at the current proposal from Governor Lamont. The Department of Transportation under Malloy, 4 years, $18 million, came up with 82 gantries. Now, in less than 2 months, Governor Lamont has come up with a plan for 52 gantries, not 82, yet the revenue number is still the same. The math just doesn't add up. I saw a presentation that was just given this week that included tolling trucks on the Merritt Parkway. Now, anyone who knows, trucks are not allowed on the Merritt Parkway. So it's kind of a rushed kind of plan. The current bill that's out there for the legislature to look at says, look, approve tolls now, and then we'll figure out how to make it happen after you approve tolls. I cannot subscribe to that type of legislation.
As Mr. McGee said, there are so many cars on these highways, particularly I-95. How do you get people out of their cars and onto trains, because there are a lot of complaints from people in the shoreline that, well, Metro North, that they're crowded, they're not up to par compared to other states. What would you like to see done to improve?
Well, again, we need to improve our transportation system, and I think we heard a little bit about that from your guests that were just on. We need the dollars in order to improve that transportation system. I really like the governor's idea of the 30-30-30. I think that will drive business into the state, drive people onto our railways and buses. But we need to get there, and the way we get there is through a revenue source. So that's where I'm at on that.
What about Bradley Airport, improving that, getting more people to use it, and getting more companies to perhaps, airlines to open up shop there? What can be done?
Well, I mean, I'm certainly in favor of doing what we can to better utilize Bradley Airport. So I'm certainly in favor of listening to ideas for doing that.
And the shoreline, do you have a lot of people who use it, or perhaps go to LaGuardia? Because you live in an area where a lot of people, I'm just going to go to New York.
Right. I think a lot of people do use Bradley. It's very convenient. It's an hour away. So I think a lot of my constituents use Bradley. Another issue that was discussed this week, a potential casino for Bridgeport. Governor Lamont seems to want to make that happen, at least from what he's indicated a little bit this week in terms of a deal with the tribes right now. What do you think about that? What should be done?
I'm certainly in favor of the concept of a casino in the Bridgeport area. I represent the Naugatuck Valley. We have the Waterbury to Bridgeport rail system. There are a lot of folks that could benefit, I think, from a casino in Bridgeport and all of the business that it would attract as well. I'm certainly open to listening to different proposals that are out there. There's the talk of working something out with the tribes, and there's also the talk of opening up the open bidding process. And so that's what's being worked out now in the legislature.
Which do you support?
Yeah, and I think it's sort of a time will tell. We have to see how the plan unfolds. I'm in favor of, certainly I'm a pro-business Democrat. I want to see more business come into the state. I think this could be a real business-friendly idea, but we have a compact to contend with, and we really need to be careful and make sure that we're keeping all parties in mind, get all the stakeholders to the table, and see what we can come up with.
You obviously were both there for the governor's budget address. Was there anything that he was perhaps lacking in what he called for, Senator Cohen?
I don't think so. I think it was a real great stepping off point. I hear that some folks would have liked to see more progressive taxation. I hear some folks would have liked to see some definitive answers or placement of revenue from, say, legalization of marijuana in his proposal. I'm not there. I think it's a stepping off point, as I say. I think that there will be several iterations. I'm confident that we can again come to a balanced bipartisan budget by working together and getting everybody to the table, but I think it was a good first step.
Senator Logan, I didn't see you clapping too often during the governor's speech. Specifically, though, was there anything there that really you found that you absolutely cannot support?
Well, I certainly think the governor's proposed budget was lacking in his speech and his description of it, lacking in detail for the budget. And what I didn't like was just the referring right to the increased revenues through increasing taxes, which I think is going to hurt the people of Connecticut. And not a lot in terms of how do we control spending? How do we do our job as a government more efficiently, more effectively? I would have liked to have heard more about that.
Senator George Logan, Republican, and Senator Christine Cohen, a Democrat. We thank you very much for being in the program, and we'll see you on here again. Best of luck in that session.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
When we come back, do you remember when the toll booths went away forever, or at least what we thought was going to be forever? We have a flashback that you'll want to see from decades ago. And we welcome your comments on social media. You can find me right now on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook.